Namaste and welcome to another episode of the Bharat Varta podcast. I'm your host for the day, Srivatsa Subarna. Today, we'll be previewing the World Test Championship final, the culmination of a 2.5 year cycle to decide the best test team in the world. The decider is a one off match scheduled to start on the 18th of June between India and New Zealand at the AGS Bowl. I'm joined on this podcast by Chetan Narula. Chetan is a well-known sports writer and journalist. He has written on cricket, Formula One, football, not just in India, but also in the US and UK. He's worked as a voice commentator for cricket at ESPN and on their mobile and web platforms and has done many matches with them. He's also witnessed history at the Wankhede Stadium when India lifted the World Cup in 2011 and wrote his first book, Skipper, a definitive account of India's greatest captains. He has also written other books, such as a book on Formula One titled The History of Formula One, and co authored another book titled a Win for the People, Story of the 2000 World T20 World Cup. Chetan, welcome to Bharat Varta. It's a great pleasure having you here. How are you doing?
Thank you, Shivatsa, for that kind introduction. Glad to be on the podcast. I'm doing well. How are you doing? Hope you're keeping safe.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. So let's get started. Chetan, to start off, just wanted to know your views on, first of all, is it a good idea to have something as a World Test Championship? And can you also give us, the history of the World Test Cricket Championship? Because it's been tried a couple of times and it has been put off earlier, right, in 2013 and 17.
17, yeah. No, I think it's a fantastic idea to have a World Test Championship because you look at any international sport and they have, they have trophies or titles at the top end of their sport. And for cricket, the top end of our sport is Test cricket. You talk about T20s, you talk about ODIs. I mean, every player talks about the primacy of Test cricket. So Test cricket is at the top ladder. T20 is gaining popularity. It's gaining credence. It's becoming a sport in itself. Um, Cricket is evolving through T20 cricket, but again, the players want to earn their stripes by a majority of the players, not every player, but a majority of the players want to earn their stripes by playing Test cricket. And certainly, a lot of Indian cricketers want to earn the big bucks in the IPL, but they also want to earn their stripes at um, at the test level. So I love test cricket. Let me be very, very frank about this. As a journalist, it's always been a dream to go and cover test matches. There's something really amazing about covering, the first day of a new series, whether it's in India or in overseas. I love my overseas tours. This pandemic has made me miss the Australian series, probably will miss the English series and the South Africa series as well. It's been a while since I covered a test match. I don't miss T20s and ODIs as much as I missed. I miss going to the ground and watching Test cricket. Getting ready on the very first morning of a Test match or morning of a Test series. It's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. Um, why do we need a World Test Championship? And it's a good idea because I'll come to the bit where why is a good idea. It's a good idea because, like I said, it's a primacy of our sport, and every top tier of your sport needs to have a champion. I mean, we have the number one ranked team, but that can change. I mean, you have number one ranked teams in football as well, but you still have the World Cup, you still have the Euros, you still have the Copa America. So we needed to give it more context. And also, um, in the ranking system, it was just about bilateral series. You keep on playing and you get the rankings. There was not every test match was getting that credence. Not every test match was being weighted. In the World Test Championship, as we have seen in the last 6 months, every test match has had value put to it. So nobody can say, you know what, yeah, I mean, you don't always play for victory because sometimes you have to work out the draws because you don't want to lose, but even draws have points. So they have given credence to getting favorable results in test cricket. We're getting more and more results in test cricket. So I think we needed a championship. Whether it is the right formula or right format, we don't know yet. But at least we're getting a champion, a first time ever. It's been more than 100, 150 years of Test cricket. For the first time ever, we're getting a champion. Just a bit of background on the World Test Championship. It was mooted first in 2009, 2010. They wanted to host it in 2013. Harun Logart was spearheading it. They canceled it and they had the 2013 Champions Trophy. Then they decided we'll have it in 2017. Again, they decided to cancel it. There are a lot of considerations into it. There are cost considerations, there are broadcasting considerations, how the broadcasters can get their money. Also, what happens is when you have the right cycle, you need to predefine an event. If you define an event as an ODI or a T20, the broadcasters or the host nations might not agree to change it to Test cricket, because T20s and ODIs will earn your hosts and your broadcasters more money. But if you define that, okay, we will have some event, but you don't define it, and that's what they did in this latest right cycle. They said, okay, you know what? There's a window here in 2021. There's a window in 2023. We will see what we can do. And they did not have the Champions Trophy in 19, and we had the World Cup in 21. We're supposed to have an event, but they did not define it. And because they did not define it, the broadcaster and the host could not push for the cancellation of the plans. And once it took off, they had an idea, they got it on paper. Earlier, it was the top 4 ranked teams going to play 2 semifinals and a final. It was going to be a 3 test series, 2 semifinals and a final, which still makes sense according to me. However, because you can have 2 simultaneous test matches, the semifinals, and then you can have the one final. For example, you could play at Southampton and Edgbaston, and then you have the final at Lord's, something like that, or Bangalore and Calcutta, and then the final at Wankhede. That sort of thing can happen, should happen. So there could be some changes to the World Test Championship. Indian coach Ravi Shastri has said, the final should be a 3 test series. It should not be just a one-off test. So a lot of changes can be expected in the future. But let me just go out and say, it's a great idea. It gives credence to Test cricket. It gives credence to every Test match that's being played, and it will help Test cricket survive. The ICC has come out with their future plans from 23 to 2020, from 23 to 2031, 8-year plan. We have 4 World Test Championships in there. We have another one in 2023. So, we're preserving Test cricket. We're going ahead with a proper plan, because without a proper plan, Test cricket would be in danger.
Right. I mean, some great points to start off with. I think you're absolutely right. For sure, cricketers like Virat Kohli definitely cherish playing Test cricket.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely the highest form of the game. So great points to start with. Now coming to the 2 teams, right? India and New Zealand.
Sure.
Can you just talk us through, their journey to the sort of top 2 positions because of which they're playing in this final?
It's interesting because obviously this journey has been disturbed by the pandemic. Let's be honest, because when the tournament started in 2019, India, they beat West Indies, they beat South Africa, they beat Bangladesh, and they were off top of the table, and everybody was like, oh, India are already there. People were already complaining, you know what, the formula is skewed in India's favor. No, that's not true. It's just that India played their bulk of matches at home before anybody else did. I mean, England played 5 test matches at home, but they played 5 in one series, and they played against Australia, so it was a 2-2 Ashes draw, so you don't get too many points. So when you play 2-match series, you get more points. When you play a 5-match series, you get fewer points. You get 24 points for winning a match. When you play 2-match series, you get 60 points for winning a match. So India played 2-match series against West Indies, 3-match series against South Africa. So they got 60 points there, 40 points there, then again 2 matches against Bangladesh. So they were getting more points for the same number of matches that the other teams were playing. So there was a bit of an inequality in there, and a lot of people were criticizing it. And this is something that probably needs to be addressed, but that's a separate debate. So India got a great start. Then they went to New Zealand, they lost 2-0, and that was a shocker. And then the pandemic came, and then, series started canceling. And India didn't lose any series. India didn't lose any test series because they were as it is supposed to go and play Australia at the end of the year. However, a lot of context changed in between. Now, what happened? New Zealand, while India was beating West Indies and South Africa and Australia and England were playing, New Zealand went to Sri Lanka and they drew there. So New Zealand usually play 2-match series or 3-match series. They don't play 5 tests. So New Zealand drew in Sri Lanka and they got 60 points. They won a test match in Sri Lanka, which is not easy. Not all teams can do that. Um, so New Zealand went there, they won a test match, they got 60 points. Then they went to Australia, they lost 3-0. Now the turning point came when they beat India 2-0 at home. In a two-match series, and you beat a top-ranked team, and you beat the number one team, and you beat the team which had 360 points at that time, which was undefeated in the World Test Championship, and you suddenly got 120 points. Now, because of the pandemic, a lot of other series were being impacted. So Australia's tours were impacted. English tours were starting to get impacted. All other teams like South Africa and Pakistan, they did not even play more than a series in the World Test Championship. Some of those series got cancelled. So crux of the matter, at the summer of 2020, we had 4 teams, New Zealand, Australia, England, and India, who had a chance of making the final. Then England played at home, they beat West Indies and Pakistan, they got those points, they came up. Then New Zealand had their home summer because they're an island, they're the most protected nation in this pandemic. They got the teams there, they beat West Indies, they beat Pakistan, they got their points. They got their points in the bag. Again, these were 2-match series, so they got all those points. So New Zealand were at a really good place. So by the time India reached Australia, they needed to win at least one test match in Australia, on Australian soil, to have any chance whatsoever of making the final. Then New Zealand beat West Indies, New Zealand beat Pakistan, so the equation changed. Then India lost 36 all out. Equation changed even more. Now they needed to win one match and draw another. Then New Zealand beat Pakistan, the equation changed. England beat Sri Lanka, equation changed. India then needed to win the series in Australia, then win the series against England at home, and they did both of that. England beat Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka. Australia lost at their home ground. So, it was really exciting. This has been the journey of the World Test Championship. What I would like to see is a more equitable distribution of points, maybe more points for winning overseas test matches, maybe finding a balance between 2-match series and 5-match series and 3-match series and 4-match series. These are all debates for later, but this has to be addressed. But the pandemic, and also one more thing happened, they changed the rules, which is something that Virat Kohli and Ravi Shastri spoke about, that, you know what, you changed the rules. And surprisingly, Anil Kumble was the head of the committee that changed the rules. I don't want to stoke any fires there, but it was really surprising for me that he was head of the committee and he accepted it. The rule change was the top 2 teams with the most points will not get in the final. The percentage of points would be counted. So if India had 360 points and they played 70 points, their percentage would be what, 60%?
Yeah.
So you were calculating the number of points you have played for and the percentage points you've won. And then the percentage, according to the percentage. Now, let me be very honest. I think the percentage formula is really good. It's really good because that is one way of finding equity between the 2-match series, 3-match series, and 5-match series. Because what matters is not the number of points you're winning. What matters is the percentage of points you're winning, right? Because then every test match is even more important because the percentage, number of matches you play and the number of matches you win are an equitable distribution. The problem with this cycle was you can't change the rules of the game midway through the game. That was the only problem. And India, despite winning all those matches, would have lost out. It would not have been fair. But as it turned out, they put in some great performances. England winning the first test in India further complicated it. They had to win the next 3 test matches, despite beating Australia in Australia. And Australia could have gone to South Africa. They could have won a match there. It would have become even more complicated. I spent a lot of time calculating permutations, what would happen and putting them out on Twitter. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that phase. But again, you can't change the rules in the middle of the tournament. That was a problem. But the percentage points, if you have the percentage points from the starting, it'll really help. But this, in short, is the story of the road to the final for both teams.
Pretty fascinating story. I mean, with a lot of ups and downs. Now, coming specifically to New Zealand, right?
Yeah.
This is the second test they're playing in England. I mean, we can see it in the background as well. I mean, does that give them kind of an advantage? Because India has not played a test, since Ahmedabad, and
Yeah.
the IPL was kind of cut short a month ago. So, do you think New Zealand has some sort of an advantage in terms of being more acclimatized to the conditions and so on?
Definitely, there's no doubt about it. I mean, yes, Ravi Shastri and Virat Kohli will say no advantage. We'll play as if we are playing on our home turf and all that. But that's here. That's all mental. But when you talk about being in sync with the game, being acclimatized, hitting the straps from ball one, hitting the ball on the length from ball one, that's a bit of a difference. Sometimes experience also helps, and that's why I think India's experience will count for a lot, because they were in England 2018. They've just come back from Australia. They're practicing hard. Even yesterday, they had an intra-team practice. So what India are doing is they're not practicing in their practice gear. They're wearing all their test gear. They're making it feel like they're playing a test match. They're playing it with that same intensity, and that's one thing that I can assure you: this Indian team will play with intensity. This Indian team will play. The way they are actually going to play their matches, and that's how they perform net practice sessions. However, net practice sessions are net practice sessions. At the end of the day, the intensity of a real test match, which is being broadcast and talked about and being watched the world over, that's completely different. I mean, Edgbaston, you probably were watching, everybody was watching. The crowd on day one at Edgbaston was amazing. Amazing. That gives you a different energy than, say, a practice match, which you will not have that crowd energy. Crowd energy also feeds the players. So I think New Zealand will be at an advantage, but how much is that advantage is the point. Is it 70-30 in their favor? No, I don't think so. Is it 60-40 in their favor? Probably. It's 60-40, 55-45 in New Zealand's favor in terms of having been there, having played a warm-up game, intra-team warm-up game, plus 2 test matches in anger. So all of their players have had a run out in anger, basically, is the way we say. That's the only advantage. Otherwise, I think India should start favorites.
I couldn't agree more. Now coming to the, cricket is a different game in the sense that those 22 yards, the ball, in no other sport, do
Yeah,
these conditions matter as much, right? Be it
yeah,
football, hockey, or any other game. So I guess it's been raining a bit around Southampton, and the county games this season, we've seen a few teams being bowled out for less than 100, right? And we are playing
yeah,
with a Duke ball,
yeah,
which in itself has a more pronounced seam. I know
yeah.
Jasprit Bumrah loves the Duke ball,
Ashwin
but it
does too. Ashwin
Ashwin
does
does
too.
it, okay,
Yeah.
but it makes it difficult for the batsman. So how does all of this come into the picture, and what can we expect in terms of the pitch and the ball, how it will behave and so on?
I mean, the ball has an impact in almost every sport where you use a ball, really. In tennis, you put the swing on it or the spin on it. I mean, we saw some amazing tennis between Nadal and Djokovic last night. In football, you have the laws of physics when you taking free kicks. In golf, again, the laws of physics when you taking those shots. Um, the, the thing with cricket is that it's not just the laws of physics and the air movement around the ball, it's also the pitch conditions. So a flatter pitch, a harder pitch, a spin friendly pitch, those will add on to what the ball is really doing. So yes, in that sense, cricket is a bit unique, I would say, and I think everybody would agree with that. um, Talking about Southampton, you said it's been raining. You know what? I've had 3 tours of, in fact, 4 tours of England, and let me just tell you, you just can't trust the English weather. You cannot trust the English weather. If you're talking on June 12th, the match is supposed to start on 18 June. The conditions will change 3 times in this week alone. They could change 3 times during the course of the test match. So the conditions on day one, which would influence your toss decision, would not be the same as the conditions on day five. So I think what both teams need to do is square off all their bases. You need to prepare for swing and seam friendly conditions. You also need to prepare for batsman friendly conditions. You also need to prepare for spin friendly conditions, because if the pitch gets drier, if the sun comes out, then Southampton usually takes spin. So I think both teams will have spinners and pacers and good batsmen in their mix. And when I say that, I mean, obviously all teams do. When I say that, spinners is a vital point, because India, I think, should play both Ashwin and Jadeja. Um, New Zealand will definitely play a spinner, because whether they go with 4 pacers is something to be seen, because they have some good all-rounders as well, Daryl Mitchell and Colander Grandholm. So they have Santner, they have Patel, 2 good quality spinners. So I think it'll be very tough to leave out any one particular base. You have to, because this is a one-off match. It's not a 2-match series or a 3-match series where you can say, okay, you know what, we made a mistake, we did not pick a spinner. You have to pick a spinner, because you don't know how the conditions will behave on day 5 if the track breaks down. So Southampton traditionally takes spin. However, Southampton also has good cloud cover at times, English weather. It will surely have some grass to start off with. I'm pretty sure there will be movement on day 1, um, especially if there is rain around. So you can't really be sure what's going to happen. Also, what happens is, if you're playing a test match in June in England and you're playing a test match in August and the last week of August or the first week of September, conditions are vastly different. In the latter half of August, you'll have great sunshine. You still have rain, but you still have more patches of great sunshine and longer duration of sunshine. August is the proper summer really in England. So because it's happening in June, I would still think it would be wet, intermittently wet, and the conditions would favor, especially with the new ball, with the Duke's ball. But I would not rule out, if I was Virat Kohli or Kane Williamson, I would definitely make sure I play the spinners, get all the bases covered. So you can't really predict the conditions. We'll see what it is on Friday, but I think both teams will go with intelligent selections.
Right. Coming to India,
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time like a decade ago when India became a very poor traveling team, right? We
Yeah.
lost 4-0 in 2 successive series, and then it continued for a while, and Dhoni kind of resigned. But since Kohli has become captain, we've seen a steady improvement in overseas performance. What do you think are some of the reasons why India has become a much better traveling team?
I think there's no particular singular reason. There are a multitude of reasons why India have become such good travelers. I mean, when you say such good travelers, they have won back-to-back Test series in Australia. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
The first time around, yes, you can say Steve Smith and Warner were not there, but they were there this time, weren't they? So
Yeah.
what happened? India's second and third team beat Australia, didn't they? I mean, it's always brings a smile to my face. Uh, they lost in England in 2018 4-1, but that was a flattering scoreline. I think the Test series was much closer than that. Uh, I think Edgbaston, Southampton were 2 matches India should and could have won. The difference was hardly 1 session or 30 to 50 runs. South Africa 2018 is something that really should hurt them, because they made schoolboy errors in team selection. Don't want to go to too much detail there. Press conferences and all
Let's
that.
let's focus on the positive.
Yeah. So um, South Africa 2018 should really hurt them, because that should have been a series win. Let's be very honest. Now let's come to the reasons why it has changed for India under Virat Kohli. Um, a majority of the players are the same as they were under Dhoni since 2012. But what happens in a cricketer's life is they go through these growth cycles and they become different players at different points of time. So those players were not grown up, or they were not performing at their best. And when I say not performing at their best, is because they had not realized their true potential even when playing at international cricket. Pujara today is not the Pujara of 14. Ashwin today is not the Ashwin of 2014. And I'm talking in terms of overseas travel. Virat Kohli has changed as a batsman. 2014, he struggled. 2018, he's in England. He was so different. Rohit Sharma is no longer the batsman he was in 14. Ishant Sharma, such a different bowler. Shami, such a fitter bowler, such a better bowler. And then you add people like Jadeja, who's grown in his batting, Bumrah, who's come on, Rishabh Pant, who's such an X factor we have seen in Australia. A lot of things have changed. Even from 2018 to 21, 22, a lot of things have changed. In 2018, our opening partnership was, well, they were walking wickets. Shikhar Dhawan was a walking wicket in Test cricket. In South Africa, in England, Murli Vijay became a walking wicket. KL Rahul had his struggles. So I'm not going to say that our opening pairs today are much better, but they're still confident. Shubman Gill is really confident. Rohit Sharma has grown as a batsman. I would really want to see him play in England as an opener and see how he does well, because it could be something like a Virender Sehwag thing that happened in 2002. So a lot of things have changed. So that's one thing. Ajinkya Rahane is a totally different player than he was in 14. So a lot of things have changed in terms of the players' growth curves. The second point for me is the mentality that Virat Kohli has brought. And then the third point to me is the mentality that Ravi Shastri has brought. So let's talk about Virat Kohli's mentality. Virat Kohli is a very different captain from MS Dhoni, and that's where the captaincy bit comes in. Not a lot of credit is given to Virat Kohli with the way Indian team has played Test cricket on the front foot. And why I say Virat Kohli factor, because there was a year in between where it was under the coaching of Anil Kumble, but the results were no different. They went to West Indies and they won. And people say, you know what, West Indies are, not that great a team. Yes, but you still have to play. You still have to win, right? And think about those series when you go to Sri Lanka and beat those teams, and go to West Indies and beat those teams. The Indian team does it in second gear. I'm not saying they play casually. They do it in second gear. They don't have to exert themselves too high. No disrespect to Sri Lanka, no disrespect to West Indies. It's just the quality gap between the two sides, And they did it in second and third gear. In Australia, they were in fifth gear. There's a difference. When you're playing with intensity, there's a difference. So the challenge has been, and we talked about how Virat Kohli loves Test cricket, and that is a supreme quality of Virat Kohli. The other supreme quality of Virat Kohli is the fitness standards. So this test side is the fittest ever, Indian test side. This test side wants to win. That desire to do well in Test cricket, the desire to go to overseas and win, and Virat Kohli maybe wants to win because he's captain, and obviously as a captain you want to win. No captain wants to lose, but that desire to do well, to win, that's Virat Kohli. Now, I'll bring in Ravi Shastri. Not a lot of people give him enough credit. When India won in Australia, nobody gave him credit, because they were like, okay, Rahul Dravid has prepared. The second and third string side beat Australia, and they were like, you know what? It's Rahul Dravid who's prepared these youngsters, and it's true. Rahul Dravid has changed the face of the domestic game, or the domestic cricketers, or how India A cricketers travel. Earlier, India A cricketers were not assured of playing a game. But if you're an India A cricketer today, you are assured of at least one game, because you need to have that experience of conditions. So all credit due to Rahul Dravid. But you can only do so much at the domestic level or the junior level. When you're playing international cricket, Rahul Dravid was not there. Who was there? Ravi Shastri was there. To turn it around from 36 all out is not easy. To turn it around without Virat Kohli, without Ishant Sharma, without Mohammad Shami, without Ashwin, without Jadeja in the final test match, without Hanuma Vihari now, it was not easy. And the coaching staff, the mentality that Ravi Shastri brings to this team is, we are going to play as if we are going to play in our own backyard, right? And why is that important, and why the younger generation of fans are probably not realizing this, is because they haven't seen the struggles of 80s and 90s, or even early 2000s. The mentality changed a bit in 2000, because players like Kumble and Nehra and Zahir and Javagal Srinath, he played earlier bit of 2000s, but Tendulkar, Kumble, Harbhajan, Sehwag, I mean, they had that, Ganguly, Dravid, Lakshman, all of them, they had that experience of going overseas, playing, and then making sure that those experiences count for something. And this is the same cycle. The Indian team is in the same cycle, because they have been to these overseas tours and they've got that experience. But the mentality is different. The mentality is, we're not going to be scared of come what may. Why? Because Shastri, as a commentator, as a media manager, as a team director, he's seen different stages of Indian cricket. He's seen how Indian teams, he's been a cricketer in the 80s and early 90s himself. So he knows how the Indian teams struggle when you let the conditions come into your head, And let's be honest, conditions do come into your head. So the players are very good now. They're aggressive and their attitude is different because of the IPL. But again, the mentality needs to be there. And let's be honest, not enough credit is given. Jokes and banter is all very fine, but I think Ravi Shastri should get a little more credit than he has for some of the great results. I mean, 2 Test series wins in Australia. Show me another coach. Show me another coach. I mean, John Wright, one of the greatest coaches. Gary Kirsten, one of the greatest Indian coaches. They didn't win series in Australia. Winning series in Australia is, yeah, just different.
I mean, I would agree with Shastri. So I mean, I know what he did with the Mumbai Ranji team in the mid 90s,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
They were going through a slump, and then there
Yeah,
was literally a decade of dominance, and the seeds for
yeah,
that were pretty much laid by Ravi Shastri, the captain. Then
yeah. And I'll just add something. Even I'll draw this analogy with football because I'm a huge Jose Mourinho fan. It's the football is there. It's not like Mourinho doesn't know football. He does know football, but he brings something additional. He brings the mind job. And to me, Shastri is like that. He brings the mind job to the table. He will leave Virat to pick his side. He will leave Bharat Arun for the bowling coaching, or Sanjay Bangar or Vikram Rathod for batting, and R. Sridhar for the fielding. But the mind job is there. Somebody needs to do the mind job. Why did Siraj perform so well? Virat Kohli was not there. Ajinkya Rahane was there. The team was together. Ravi Shastri made sure that the guy who had lost his father was mentally there. That Washington Sundar, who hadn't played for 2 years, was mentally there to smash Pat Cummins in the last hour of the Gaba Test match. It does not happen because Rahul Dravid coached them at the domestic level. Yes, that's a factor, but there is also a factor at the international level. So if we are giving credit to Rahul Dravid, Ravi Shastri also deserves credit, and he doesn't get it too often.
absolutely, I'm really glad you brought that up. I'm a huge Shastri fan myself. For the mental side of things. I mean,
Yeah,
despite being what is referred to as a limited cricketer, he did exceptionally well, right? As
yeah,
an international cricketer.
yeah.
There's one, I would say, still sort of dark spot when it comes to India overseas, right? Which is New Zealand and England. Uh, I mean, these two countries we've still kind of struggled to win. What do you think? Is the reason for that, or some of the reasons for that?
You mentioned New Zealand, and which was the other one? Sorry,
England, I
voice
mean,
yeah.
England as well. It's been, even though we were
Well,
close
we have
the
one.
last time.
We have one series. We have one series in England and New Zealand, but those were different teams.
Yeah, exactly.
2009, Dhoni.
2007 and 2009. 7 with
2007 and
Dravid.
9 with
Yeah.
9 again. I think was with Dravid. I think
9 was with Dhoni as captain, and
9 was with Dhoni as captain because yes, he had become Test captain. Sorry, my mistake. I don't know how I forgot that. But Dravid did play that series. Yeah. Okay, I'll come to England first. England conditions. England is not an easy place to travel to because the conditions vary across 5 different Test matches. And I'll tell you, I was there on the 2014 tour. 2011 tour was a complete abomination. Let's forget that. 2014, I'll tell you what happened on 14. Nottingham Test we drew, we won in Lords. And then Southampton, everything crumbled. We dropped the catch of Alistair Cook. He got 100. And then Rohit Sharma holed out before tea time, and we were 250 all out. So the momentum shifted. And again, like I said, that time the team wasn't ready to compete in those conditions. The transition had just been finished. Now that was the transition that had finished at home. Now they were transitioning overseas. 2018, they should have won. Let's be honest. It was a very close series. Sometimes the result does not do you justice. And like I said, India should have won in Edgbaston. The first Test, they should have won in Edgbaston. We lost by 30 odd runs. We lost because we had one bad session batting in the first innings. Second Test match was total washout. Let's just forget the second Test match, okay? Because that one Test match like that will happen in England. Yeah. And obviously it did not help that you had the whole day to change your team, but you did not change your team. So let's just forget that. So let's say India won in Edgbaston. So that's still 1-1. Then India won in Nottingham. So that's 2-1 to India. and the whole complexion of the series changes because there's just 2 matches left. And instead of India being in the must-win situation, it was England in a must-win situation, that way. So at Southampton, England would have been under pressure and not India. And then obviously it does not help that Virat Kohli doesn't win too many tosses, right? He needs to really start winning some tosses. Southampton, again, despite losing the toss, India were really close. And one bad batting session also cost them in that match. So they lost by 50 runs in Southampton. They lost by 30, 35 runs in Birmingham. And 30 runs and 50 runs is a very small margin.
Yeah,
it's a very small, it's a one session,
yeah.
half a session. So basically, and forget the Oval Test match, they lost there. But if you win those 2 Test matches in Edgbaston and Southampton, you win the series, right?
Yeah.
So when Shastri and Kohli sat in the press conference and said, you know what, you're not giving us credit because we played really well, they actually did. When you're players and you lose by 30 odd runs and 50 odd runs, you need to give them credit. And sometimes as the media, we're too harsh on them. And 2018 will always go down as the Test series. 10 years down the line, probably nobody will remember. But people like me who were there, we saw what happened, and those matches. I can't forget the Edgbaston Test match. I can't forget the Southampton Test match. They were amazing Test matches. As a neutral, they were amazing. I try to be neutral when I'm in the media box. Edgbaston Test was absolutely brilliant. 30 runs was nothing. And I thought India played really well. New Zealand is a completely different beast altogether because the conditions do not vary across a Test series. The problem with New Zealand is that you don't have too much time because you're traveling for so long, then you get into the series, then you only have a 2-match Test series. So if you make mistakes, there's not much time to recover from that. And you will make mistakes because what happens is that you go to New Zealand and they'll give you a green top wicket. And you'll be like, okay, this is a green top wicket. I should play as if it's a green top wicket. But New Zealand green tops are not really green tops. They make them green tops because in the second innings, and that's nowhere in the world this happens, New Zealand Test matches become better for batting in the second innings.
Yeah.
And traveling teams are taken aback sometimes with what happens in the first innings, that they fail to grasp what happens in New Zealand in the second innings. The average score in second innings in New Zealand is higher than in the first innings. And that is an anomaly from anywhere else in the world of cricket. So, it's not easy playing because you make those mistakes, because those green tops can induce those mistakes. And when you make those mistakes, you can't come back from them in a 2-test match series. So I would like India to go there and learn from their mistakes because we have a good bowling attack. The reason why we lost in 2019, there was a different reason altogether because I think the Indian team was fatigued from too much cricket.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me tell you the schedule of that before that tour. 2019 World Cup, they had the IPL before that. So IPL, 2019 World Cup, then they went to West Indies, then they played South Africa, then they played Bangladesh, then they played Sri Lanka, then they played West Indies, then they played Australia, then they went to New Zealand, played the ODIs, played the T20s. So they had been playing since April, the same bunch of players, the same team. And by the time they reached March of next year, because there was very high intensity series, especially the World Cup was very high intensity. The IPL was high intensity. Playing all those Test matches because you're playing the World Test Championship, that was high intensity. Bangladesh made tough work for India in the T20 series. Australia ODI series was really high intensity. West Indies series, you remember Virat Kohli doing that? It was really high intensity. ODIs and T20s in New Zealand were high intensity. We had
some of them went to exactly. That's what I was
two super overs, right?
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And 2020, not 2019, 2020, the New Zealand tour of 2020. So by the time they came to the Test series, it was the end of the season, a very long season. They saw those green tops. They lost out in the first innings. They did better in the second innings, but again lost out in the first innings. They were very tired, very jaded. I was watching on television because I was not covering that Test series for some reasons, personal reasons. But even watching on television, I could tell the Indian team was really tired. Virat Kohli looked tired. Rohit Sharma was not there, but Ajinkya Rahane looked tired. And All of these guys looked really tired because it had been a very, very long season. And again, they went and played the IPL. So uh, New Zealand is tougher because you go at the end of a season, the conditions are like that. But the next time they go there, that's in, if I'm not wrong, they're going there in 24 or 25 for the next Test series. I would like uh, a better result for sure, definitely. Yeah.
Right. Uh, so coming to the New Zealand squad, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing that the batsmen are doing quite well against England, especially the openers. Conway and Latham. They seem to be
Yeah.
like holding forth while Ross Taylor, Young, etc. Williamson come in. How does this batting lineup stack up, say, against our Indian bowling attack? Right? What do you think? Are going to be some of the key matchups there?
I think three left-handers in their top order. That's going to be interesting because Ashwin is going to be a huge weapon there. He loves to bowl with the Duke's ball. There's going to be some turn on the Southampton track. Shami and Bumrah can get the ball to move a bit. Ishant Sharma gets the ball to move. He can be a stock bowler. I would like to see Jadeja as the all-rounder in the side, so he can hold one end tight if New Zealand batting stretches out in the middle. I think the danger would be from Kane Williamson, definitely. Devon Conway looks in great touch. Latham can be very dangerous at the top, but I think New Zealand batting is a bit lightweight
Yeah.
Compared to the Indian bowling. I would say both the bowling attacks are really good. India have an advantage in terms of their middle order being more impressive. Why I don't say the top order is because Rohit Sharma is going to open for the first time in England in Test cricket. Shubman Gill's first tour, Mayank Agarwal's first tour. Mayank Agarwal, I think, has a technical problem. I haven't seen him bat since the IPL, but in the tests down under, it was pretty clear that he had some technical issues there he needed to sort out. Shubman Gill, he was in great form, did not score those hundreds. He should have scored hundreds. What sort of a form is he in? So the top order, I'm a bit dicey because if you're 10 for 2, Pujara can't save you every time, right? He can most of the time, not every time. So the top order for both sides is a bit shaky compared to the middle order. Middle orders, I think India has a very strong middle order with Virat coming back. He probably has a point to prove. He's not got 100 since
October or November 2019, if I remember.
Yeah, but that was an ODI 100. That was not a Test 100.
Yes.
His last Test 100. Last Test 100 was October 2019 against South Africa. He got a double 100. So it's been 18 months.
Yes.
It's been 18 months since he scored a Test 100. It's been 15, 16 months since he scored 100 in any format.
Yeah.
So there's a point to prove there because there's a huge England series afterwards, and you don't want to be. This will probably be Anderson's last home series or second last home series. You don't want to be Anderson's money all over again, do you? No. So Virat has a point to prove. So I think India's middle order is very impressive, is very strong. I think Jadeja will play ahead of Hanuma Vihari. So that will give India strength in bowling as well, because Ashwin alone is better a spinner than Santner or Patel. But Ashwin Jadeja combined, that's half the bowling attack, really, especially if the ball is turning. I'm not sure if Hanuma Vihari will play the championship final. I think India will go in with 5 bowlers because they will rely on Jadeja and Ashwin to bat a bit. The big question for me is, again, I was talking on Clubhouse before this podcast. There was a question mark over Siraj or Ishant. There is no question mark. It's going to be Bumrah, Shami, and Ishant. You need experience. You need stock bowlers. You need to have all your bases covered. Ishant can be a defensive fast bowler. It's very tough to be a defensive fast bowler. For England, that is going to be, for New Zealand, that is going to be the problem. They have Kyle Jamieson, they have Trent Boult, Sim Saudi, Neil Wagner. They have Daryl Mitchell as the all-rounder. They have Grandholm. I don't see them playing Grandholm. I think if they go in with 4 bowlers, if they go in with 4 fast bowlers, they won't pick a seam bowling all-rounder. Then they will pick up a spinner. So they'll have those 5 bowlers. If they drop a pacer, then they will probably go in with Mitchell or Grandholm and, make up for those medium pace overs. But I don't, because like I said, it's just a one-off match. They have to play a spinner. What if the ball is turning from day 3 and you don't have a spinner? What are you going to do? So I think both teams will play spinners, and obviously India will. I think India will play 2 spinners. New Zealand will definitely play 1 spinner. Whether they'll play 4 pacers is going to be the key. Now, where I see this match, the vital moment of the match, even before the match has started, is if India bat first and the conditions are overcast, and this is where the condition bits come in, because New Zealand have been playing 2 test matches and India haven't played in anger. So if India bat first and the condition factor comes into play, that's where India could be on the weaker side. But again, I think overall balanced. I think both teams are almost equal. If you take out the factor that India haven't played test matches and New Zealand have played test matches, I would give it 60-40 to India. But because New Zealand have played it, I would say 55-45 to New Zealand would be my prediction. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the one interesting thing with the current Indian coaching setup, with Kohli also as part of the decision making body, is that we're not even debating whether India will go with 5 bowlers or not.
Yeah.
Otherwise, whenever we used to play overseas, we would always play it safe.
Yeah.
Have a keeper like Dhoni, or if it was Pant, then bat at 7, and then go
Yeah.
with 4 bowlers. So
no, I mean it's interesting because Dhoni used to play 5 bowlers a lot.
But in India,
no, but overseas as well. But the problem is he didn't have a proper all-rounder, because when I remember 14, he tried his hand with Stuart Binney. It did not work. And in Australia, he played 3 fast bowlers and Ashwin, because you need to shore up your batting at different times.
Yeah.
So yes, Dhoni would play 4 bowlers in tests primarily. He tried playing 5 in England in 14, did not work. But yes, under Virat, we've played 4 fast bowlers. We played without a spinner as well. We played 4 fast bowlers and Hardik Pandya as well. So it's interesting. I think Virat as a captain has made a lot of team changes, and there's a lot of criticism to be had there, because sometimes those changes have cost India. But some of those changes have been very interesting. I mean, 4 fast bowlers in Perth in 2018, that was amazing. Amazing. I don't remember an Indian captain who had such a great fast. I mean, you can play 4 fast bowlers, but you don't always have 5 great or 4 great fast bowlers to choose from. No Indian captain has had that. Virat Kohli has had that. And yes, we lost the Perth test match, but again, that was because of batting failures and not because of the bowling failures. But yeah, sometimes he throws up really interesting team combinations. I hope there won't be any such surprises. But I think for me, the only thing that remains to be seen is Hanuma Vihari or Jadeja, and I would go in with Jadeja.
Right. And this is not a criticism of Dhoni per se. Even Steve Waugh would go with 7 batsmen pretty much and 4 bowlers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Even though he could easily probably have afforded to go in with another bowler. Right.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
No, I was just saying that it's interesting that you compare, because Dhoni and Gilchrist at number 7, that keeper batsman thing, that was interesting. I would compare them almost similarly.
Yeah.
Dhoni, the batsman in Test cricket, probably not as much, but again, he's had some good knocks. He was very consistent though, and He kept decently well. So overall scenario, you would say, Gilchrist and Dhoni at number 7, but then you had Michael Hussey and Damien Martin, so you had to play them. And Steve Waugh had such great bowlers. Where's the key difference? The key difference is Steve Waugh had those great bowlers: McGrath, Gillespie, Redley, Shane Warne. You didn't need a 5th bowler. You didn't need a 5th bowler. Dhoni, it was more because, yeah, maybe your 4 bowlers will pick wickets, but it's your 7 batsmen who have to save the match. That was the difference. That was the key difference there. Dhoni never had the bowling in Test cricket. Whether
Absolutely.
It was, I think the only series where he had the bowling resources was South Africa. I'm talking about overseas Test cricket.
Yeah.
2009, yes, because Zahir Khan was imperious. But overall, if you see, the only series where he actually had the bowling resources was 2010, because they were at the height of their bowling prowess. Even 2009 was a kind of a fluke, because there was this one session which got rained off where we were 9 down, and Dhoni was himself at the crease. If that session hadn't been, I'm pretty sure India would have lost that test. So it was lucky. Sometimes you need such luck. I'm not denying that. Sometimes you need such luck, but I think 2010 was more wholesome in terms of the bowling attack. And that was the only time Dhoni had a great bowling attack.
Right. So this has been a great discussion, Chetan. So I
Yeah,
have one last question to you.
sure.
I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you for a prediction. Who is going to
um,
win? And let's also try to add a margin here to
oh,
make it
margin.
little
Margin is going to
make
be
it
tough
make it
here.
little more interesting.
No, margin is going to be really tough. Okay, let's for margin, I'll go with 50 runs, because if that happens, then we will have a fantastic test match. As to who should win it, well, I have a standing rule, when it comes to ICC tournaments. When it comes to covering cricket, I try to be as neutral as possible, because otherwise you can't criticize, and we love to criticize, don't we? Um, but when it comes to ICC tournaments, when it comes to finals, not even semi-finals, when it comes to finals, I will not pick against India, because Dil Hai
Fair
Hindustani,
enough.
right?
Yeah,
Dil Hai Hindustani. And I've grown up watching Indian cricket, supporting Indian cricket. So because it's an ICC final, I would say India, but very slightly, 55-45, 60-40 if they had prior experience of the conditions, if they had gone early, played some cricket there. But 55-45 because New Zealand have been playing a test series. Um, Again, if India win by a margin of 50 runs, it would be an excellent test match. Excellent test match.
right. I'll go with something similar. I think it's going to be a
Yeah.
very close test match, and hopefully India should win.
But
Right.
but just before you finish off, but um, the problem is that we were all predicting the same thing for the World Cup semi-final as well. And what happened there? We misread the conditions at the toss.
Yeah.
We misread the team selection. And New Zealand was superb. Kane Williamson was superb. And India haven't had the best of this New Zealand team in the longer format. So, let's hope for a great test match. Let's just leave it at that,
Absolutely, absolutely. This has been a fantastic conversation. So thanks, Chetan, for joining
My
in.
plan.
It's been really really wonderful to get all these insights on the Indian team, and just about the game as well, right? So
Yeah.
thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Till then, stay safe and Jai Hind.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Bharat Varta podcast. If you want to see more content like this, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We started Bharat Varta to facilitate long-form discussions on politics, policy, and culture. We don't necessarily endorse anything that was said in this episode. If you wish to offer us feedback, do reach out to us on social media. We are at Bharat Varta on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You could also get in touch with us on our website, www.bharatvarta.in. The links are in the description below. Until next time, stay safe, take care, and Jai.